Well, well, well. Looks like Sony engineers and marketing department and their manufacturing department have been very busy lately because they're producing cameras like crazy. So right now I'm shooting on the Sony ZV-E10. They just released the Sony ZV-E1 full frame, supposed to be vlogging camera, but now on May 23rd, they're releasing a new vlogging camera made for vlogging. And you know what? I think it's the ZV-2, and that's coming right up. So is this a bad thing for all the consumers out there? Well, I'm going to say yes and no. So the ZV-E1 at $2,200, and that's just for the body alone, that does not include a lens yet, is going to be very expensive for people that are just now getting into YouTube and want to be able to do some vlogging. That's why the ZV-1 was so popular when it first came out, because it was built as a vlogging camera. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the Sony ZV-1. Jesus Christ. What's up with the name with all of these cameras that they're coming out with? Because you got, remember this guy right here? The FDRX3000. I don't know who's in charge of the naming department at Sony for a lot of these cameras. But anyway, it's neither here nor there. When the Sony ZV-1 first came out, built as a vlogging camera, and it could shoot 4K, by the way, with a substantial crop in mind. But the video, the product showcase, there was so many things about the ZV-1 that was groundbreaking, like with the defocus feature where you could actually blur out the background, had a 1.8 aperture lens on it. A lot of great things, but it didn't turn out to be the vlogging camera that they thought it was going to be, because the field of view was actually still too tight, even in 1080. So that's where the aftermarket came in. And like Ulanzi, they produced this wide-angle lens for the Sony ZV-1 to help it be a little bit more respectable as far as, you know, I'm 6'6", so I've got a long reach, so I can hold the ZV-1 out pretty good and still be able to get some decent framing, but having a wide-angle lens definitely does help. But let's talk about the ZV-2. What is it going to offer? Is it going to be in the price range of the ZV-E1 at $2,200? Gosh, I hope not, because I'm not going to get the ZV-E1. It's really funny because I was just finishing editing up a video about why I'm not going to get the ZV-E1. And yes, it does have that AI processing where it can reframe you. And in the video that I was just editing, I could show where I could use a little telesin and it would actually follow focus me. Well, not follow focus, but the camera would follow me because it has that little camera on the bottom of the telesin, and it would follow and track me along. So that was something where you could get the Sony ZV-E10 at a budget price, shoot in 4K like I am right now. Now, the ZV-E10 has terrible rolling shutter, but if you're in a locked off shot on a tripod, you're good to go. Otherwise, 1080p is definitely the way to go with this. Whatever that this new vlogging camera is, and I'm going to say that it's going to be a ZV-2, and I'm going to tell you why. I've got actually two reasons why. The Sony ZV-E10, yes, it does have the little dead cat furry muff to cover up the microphone. So does the Sony ZV-E1. It's got that as well. And of course, the Sony ZV-1 has it as well. But this picture that you see from Sony talking about it's all about vlogging, this is an all vlogging camera, it has that little wind muff up on top. And that's why I think it's going to be the ZV-2. Now, are they going to call it the ZV-2, or are they going to give it some type of different designation? Are they going to call it the ZV-E2, the ZV-EX? Who knows what they're going to call it? But I think it's still going to remain around the body size of the ZV-1, but I don't think they're going to have a 1-inch sensor in it. And I don't think that they're going to go full frame sensor, because I think the full frame sensor was not as popular as what they thought. And the reason I think that is because when you look at like Amazon, when I wanted a Sony a7 IV, it was out for months before it was ever going to be available to purchase. And the same thing happened like with the Sony a7S III. When I first wanted to get it, nobody had it. And if they did have it, or they only had it in quantities of 2 or 3, and once it was sold out, then you had to be waiting to get notified again. The Sony ZV-1, the full-frame vlogging camera that they just came out with, was ready to buy. It's still ready to buy right now on Amazon, which tells me that the demand is not quite there. What could they do to a Sony ZV-2 to make it better, to make it more appealing to those out there that don't want to spend $2,200? I think that they're going to kick it up from a 1-inch sensor up to a Super 35 or APS-C. I think that they may actually throw in this AI chip into it to give you some more intelligent features with the facial recognition. They may do that. I think that they're going to have to improve upon the stabilization. Now, the thing about the ZV-1 is that its stabilization, you got that dynamic now, which a lot of people, no offense to the big review channels out there, but they were like, oh, it's gimbal-like. No, it's not gimbal-like, because I've seen everyday users that are on YouTube show how it is. And yes, it's better than standard. It's better than active. But once you go into dynamic, it crops in a little bit more, but it still has some wobbles to it. I've said forever, if a camera company, just imagine GoPro coming out with a vlogging camera, something like this size of the ZV-1, but with their stabilization, they would destroy the market. Sony, Canon, Fuji, you name it, they wouldn't be able to keep up regarding stabilization on what GoPro is doing up with the GoPro Hero 11. But Sony, are they going to offer a ZV-2? I really think so. I think it's going to be ZV-2. I don't think it's going to be ZV-E30, ZV-EX. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think the E is going to continue. But then again, I may be wrong. This is all conjecture on my part. But it's really interesting. I'd like for you to comment down in the comment section below and tell me, what do you think that this next vlogging camera from Sony is going to offer? Because I'm interested to hear what you, the consumer out there, because you're just like me, I'm a consumer. When I looked at the ZV-1 and what it had to offer, and then I saw the overheating, and 4K at 120 is still not available yet. They got to do a firmware release. So once they do the firmware release, 4K at 120 is going to be problematic, because can you imagine how that thing is going to overheat? You're going to be shooting very short bursts with the 120. And then you've got longtime people that are in the Sony ecosystem here, like the A7S III. Come on, give us a firmware update. Okay, it doesn't have that AI chip in it. We all get that, but there are some basic things that you can give us to make the flagship cameras out there, because you think of the camera, $34.95, the lens, another $2,000 for the 24-70 G Master. You got $5,500 sitting here. And what about the A1 users and their lenses? And they want some firmware updates. But I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are. What the sensor size is going to be? Is it going to be full frame? Is it going to be Super 35 APS-C? Are they going to stick with a 1-inch sensor? The one thing that they're going to have to do is offer a wider field of view. Something like can you imagine like an 11 millimeter or 16 millimeter full frame equivalent? So even if they go to Super 35, make that lens capable of being a wide angle lens and still give it some zoom, even if it was like, let's say an 11, and I don't know, how that would work out optics wise, because I'm not an engineer for lenses. Even if it was a 14 millimeter or 16 millimeter full frame equivalent, you can go from 16 to, let's say, 35 or 40 millimeter on the zoom rocker. That would still be worthwhile for a lot of people. The microphones are supposed to be improved on the E1. Great. But I'm just kind of curious, what is Sony going to drop? I'm not one of these reviewers that gets anything from Sony ahead of time, so I'm going to be just like you, watching release date and then seeing, of course, the embargo lift, and all the big YouTubers are going to shove out all their videos talking about the ZV, whatever it's going to be, even if it's a ZV series or E series, who knows what it's going to be. But they're going to talk about how great the camera is. You know what? If it's got dynamic stabilization that's even a little bit better than what the E1 offers, will it have the defocus on it? Will it be a good aperture? Would it be a nice bright aperture on it, a f1.8? I would even take an f2.8 with a larger sensor and a wider field of view on the lens. But that's just my thoughts. I know a lot of people out there are going to be conjecturing, what's this next camera going to be? I don't know. My guess is just as good as yours, but I wanted to put up this video just to say, these are my little concerns. Number one, about pricing. Number two, saturating the market. Number three, is it going to be another ZV-1 iteration number 2, the ZV-2? Because great little camera. This thing is great. I've got the little small rig case on here, and now it makes handling it a little bit better. The wide angle lens of Ulanzi helps a lot, but battery life is atrocious on it. But other than that, you know, Sony makes some great cameras. Their autofocus is just great all the way around. But anyway, tell me in the comment section down below, what are your thoughts about this new vlogging camera from Sony? I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are, because we're the consumers. So let's guess. Let's see who's going to be right, because come the 23rd, we're all going to find out, won't we? Bye.